The 15th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Vicente C. Soto III will lead the chamber in prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we praise you and glorify your name. We thank you for all your blessings. We thank you for the gift of life and love. We humbly ask for your forgiveness for all our shortcomings. Dear Lord, help us make our limited time here in this august chamber significant, fruitful, and glorifying to you. Teach us to love and revere our work. We ask you, Lord, to instill in our hearts the enormity of the responsibility we hold. Do not allow us to be proud, but make us always grateful that you saw us fit to help safeguard this great country. As we go about our daily tasks as legislators, align our will with your will. Keep us on your path of righteousness so that we will achieve what you intend us to do, and in so doing, pass on to our countrymen a rich and blessed heritage. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Soto. With the permission of the chamber, the chair declares a 1-minute suspension to enable our colleagues to come to the hall. The session is resumed. The secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Hunasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Drilon.
13 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 14th session of August 25, 2015 and consider the same as approved.
There is a motion that the reading of the journal of session number 14, August 25, 2015 be dispensed with and that the same be approved. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Bills on first reading. Senate number 2914, an act establishing the Philippine National Banana Research Center in Panabo City, province of Davao del Norte, to be known as the Antonio O. Florendo Sr. Banana Research Center, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Marcos Jr.
Agriculture and Food, Ways and Means, Finance.
Senate number 2915, an act upgrading the Southern Isabela General Hospital in Santiago City, province of Isabela, into a tertiary general hospital to be known as the Southern Isabela Medical Center, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Pimentel III.
Health and Demography, Finance.
Resolutions. PS Resolution number 1543, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the Commission on Audit report finding irregularities in the implementation of Department of Science and Technology program for micro, small, and medium enterprises by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Science and Technology, Trade and Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
PS Resolution number 1544, directing the proper Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the reported plan to construct a multi-level parking building near the famous Banawi Rice Terraces. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Education, Arts and Culture, Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
Committee report. Committee report number 213, submitted jointly by the Committees on Government Corporations and Public Enterprises and Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development on House number 5842, introduced by Representative Colmenares et al., entitled an act mandating a 2,000 peso across-the-board increase in the monthly pension with corresponding adjustment of the minimum monthly pension under the Social Security System, amending for the purpose Section 12 of Republic Act number 1161 as amended, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997, recommending its approval without amendment, taking into consideration Senate numbers 15, 220, 451, 1498, 2879, and 2888. Sponsors, Senator Cynthia A. Villar and Gingona III.
Calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we transfer House Bill number 5842 under Committee Report number 213 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill number 5842 under Committee Report 213 is transferred from the calendar for ordinary business to calendar for special orders.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider House Bill number 5842 under Committee Report number 213.
Any objection? Hearing none. In order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Treasurer read only the title of the measure.
Secretary will read the title of the measure.
House Number 5842, an act mandating a 2,000 peso across-the-board increase in the monthly pension with corresponding adjustment of the minimum monthly pension under the Social Security System, amending for the purpose Section 12 of Republic Act Number 1161 as amended, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997.
I move that we recognize Senator Villar to sponsor the measure.
Senator Villar is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, my fellow senators, I stand here today to sponsor Committee Report 213 submitted jointly by the Committee on Government Corporations and Public Enterprises and the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources. The said committee report covers Senate bills seeking the increase in the monthly pension under the Social Security System by 2,000 pesos across the board, amending for the purpose Section 12 of Republic Act Number 1161 as amended, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997. These are Senate Bill numbers 2879, 2888, 451, 220, 15, and 1498, authored by this representation and Senators Gingona, Recto, Ejercito, Marcos, and Estrada, and respectively. Senator Trillanes has requested to be co-author of the bill I authored. It also covers House Bill number 5842 as per Committee Report number 763, or an act mandating a 2,000 peso across-the-board increase in the monthly pension with corresponding adjustment on the minimum monthly pension under the Social Security System, amending for the purpose Section 12 of RA number 1161 as amended, otherwise known as the Social Security Act of 1997, authored by Representatives Colmenares, Zarate, Villar, Sakdalan, Primicias Agabas, Paes, Guanlao, Masonsong, Pakis, and Tino. Our committees, Mr. President, recommend that House Bill number 5842, taking into consideration the earlier mentioned Senate bills under Committee Report 213, to be adopted without amendment. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, it has been said by Mahatma Gandhi that a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest member. Let me paraphrase it to say that I believe that the effectiveness and responsiveness of a social security system is best measured by how well it provides for its retired members, the pensioners, who after all for a decade or two were contributing members. Lest we forget, SSS was created to establish, develop, promote, and perfect a sound and viable tax-exempt social security service suitable to the needs of the people throughout the Philippines, which shall promote social justice and provide meaningful protection to members and their beneficiaries against the hazards of disability, sickness, maternity, old age, death, and other contingencies resulting in loss of income or financial burden. The Social Security legislation provides for monthly pension of retirees. The minimum pension is 1,200 pesos for members with at least 10 credited years of service and 2,400 pesos for those with 20 years credited years of service. The minimum monthly pension under this law was adjusted several times through legislation or other issuance, for it is to be as much as possible adequate for retirees to face the rising cost of living. The latest amendment of Section 12 was under RA 8282 enacted in 1997. It has thus been 18 years since the Social Security law was amended, and there is no doubt that since then, the cost of living being faced by pensioners has risen. As such, there is an urgent need to amend the law, at least with respect to the amount of the monthly pension being received by the retirees. While the SSS has provided a 5% across-the-board pension increase for its retired members in 2014, it is admitted that such 5% increase is definitely inadequate and not sufficient to cost the rising cost of living for the past 18 years. In view of the social justice thrust of our Constitution, and in order to adequately provide for the well-being of our country's retirees, adjustment of their pension is thus long overdue. The monthly poverty threshold for a family of 5 is an average income of $8,022 per month as per latest data from the National Statistical Coordination Board. This amount is enough to cover a single family's basic food and non-food needs. Poverty threshold refers to the minimum income a family or individual must earn in order to be considered not poor. Having said that, I don't think that the basis for which SSS was established, that of promoting social justice and providing meaningful protection to its members and their beneficiaries against the hazards of old age, loss of income among other, is at work. Kasi sa tinatanggap na monthly pension ng ating mga retiradong manggagawa na minimum of between 1,200 and 2,400 pesos, mabibilang sila sa mga Pilipinong living below the poverty line. In fact, kahit nadagdagan pa ang kanilang monthly pension ng 2,000 pesos, ayon sa ating rekomendasyon, hindi pa rin nila malalampasan ang poverty threshold. As such, they will still be labeled as poor. According to SSS, as of April 2015, the average pension that they are giving their 1.9 million pensioners is 3,169 pesos, which is still below the poverty threshold. Ibig sabihin, matapos magtrabaho ang mga pribadong manggagawa ng hanggang 20 taon, kapag sila ay retirado na, marami sa kanila na aasa na lang sa monthly pension nila ay mamumuhay below the poverty line. Medyo nakakalungkot naman ang hahantungan ng mga empleyado sa ating bansa. Hindi rin natin sila masisisi kung bakit sinita nila ang 10 million pesos na bonus ng mga SSS Board of Directors noong 2013 at sumama ang loob nila nang malaman nila na noong 2009 ay umabot sa 200 million pesos ang retirement packages ng SSS board members. But that is another issue. Isa pa, Mr. President, ang natatanggap na monthly pension ng mga retirees ay halos comparable lang sa binibigay natin under the Pantawid Pamilya Pilipino Program o ang tinatawag na Conditional Cash Transfer, CCT, na ang cash grants ay umaabot sa 1,400 pesos a month. I cannot help but compare dahil ang mga pensioners natin ay nagtrabaho sa loob ng 1, 2 o mahigit pang dekada. Bakit naman sila bibigyan ng ganong halaga lang yung mga nagtrabaho at nag-retire after working for so many years? Parang medyo unfair naman iyon. Mapapabilang po sila sa mga Pilipino living below the poverty threshold. It is a sad reality that majority of retired workers in our country rely solely on their monthly pension for their upkeep. On a daily basis, it would barely cover for their sustenance. Kulang pa siguro sa pagkain nila yon. We must also consider that many of them, given their old age, may even have maintenance, medicine, and special requirements that add to their daily living expenses. SSS, through its President and CEO, Mr. Emilio De Quiros Jr., in our committee hearing clearly stated their position on the proposed pension increase. According to him, they do not oppose the proposed across-the-board increase of 2,000 pesos in pension benefits because they are very sensitive to the need of the pensioners and that they have more or less clamored over the years for higher pensions. But they are concerned about the impact of the proposal to the SSS Fund. Currently, SSS Fund life is up to 2042. Ibig sabihin, may sapat silang pondo para sa benepisyo at iba pa hanggang sa taong 2042 o sa loob ng 27 years mula ngayon taon. Sabi ni Mr. De Quiros, kung ipagkakaloob ang 2,000 pesos na across-the-board increase sa pension, ang SSS Fund life will be shortened to until 2029. SSS is proposing an increase in the contribution rate of its member from the current 11% to 15% to maintain their fund life at 2042. Based on SSS average monthly salary credit of roughly about 9,500 pesos, the contribution will move from 1,045 pesos to 1,425 or a 380 pesos increase. If we apply the ratio of 2/3 employer and 1/3 employee, additional contribution as shown for the average contribution amount, the total of 380 pesos increase. The breakdown would be 255 for the employer and 125 pesos for the employee. The distribution of SSS contribution is roughly 2/3 employer and 1/3 employee. Pero ang mga self-employed, voluntary contributors at mga overseas Filipino workers ay binabayaran ang buong amount ng contribution. Kaya mas mabigat para sa kanila kung tataasan ang SSS contribution. Thus, we do not agree with the SSS that increasing members' contribution by 15% is the solution. As my fellow legislators pointed out during our committee hearing, 2029 is still a good 14 years away. There can still come up with creative ways to lengthen their fund life. They have done it before. In 2001, it was pointed out by Representative Colmenares, the fund life of SSS was only 5 years or until 2006 only. So nakagawa sila ng paraan at naging until 2042 na ngayon. SSS recommends that it be given the authority to increase the contribution rate to at least 15% and allow subsequent increases in the future in order to support the increasing number of pensioners. But the SSS has billions of unremitted collection and uncollected premiums. They should at least improve their collection efforts first before thinking of increasing members' contribution, which seems to be the easiest thing to do for them. Ipapasa na lang lagi sa mga miyembro or contributors. Dapat singilin muna nila ang mga creditors nila na hindi nagbabayad sa kanila bago sila mag-isip na dagdagan ang singil sa mga ordinaryong empleyado. I think it's the responsibility of SSS to find more creative ways so it can lengthen the life of SSS Fund, but not at the expense of members. They have ample time to work on it. SSS can also ask for government subsidy, an option that they are more agreeable to also. If the proposed 2,000 peso increase in pension benefit will be granted, it will cover 1.9 million pensioners. Multiplied by 13 months, it will amount to about 49 billion pesos. As a point of comparison, last year, the Pantawid Pamilya Program proposed a budget amounting to 62 billion pesos. Mr. President, I think our retired workers or pensioners deserve subsidy from the government in the same way that the recipients of CCT grants do. Siguradong-sigurado ito kasi through formal means. Ang mga recipient ay talagang nagtrabaho ng ilang dekada. This is the best way to reward our workers who devoted their productive years in working. Kung yung mga hindi nagtatrabaho ay sinasubsidize natin, dapat din naman siguro na ang mga nagtatrabaho at nagsiservisyo sa atin ay isubsidize rin natin. Para naman pag huminto na sila o hindi na nila kayang magtrabaho, ay makapamuhay naman sila ng maayos. As I have pointed out earlier, even with the proposed 2,000 peso increase in their monthly pensions, majority of the pensioners will still live below the poverty threshold. And unlike the other poor Filipinos, they will not be eligible for CCT grants as they will not meet the criteria. It may not be much and will not completely lift them out of poverty, but let us provide our pensioners social justice, the very essence of social security. Lest we fail the moral test of government, which, to quote former U.S. Vice President Hubert Humphrey, is how the government treats those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I earnestly seek the swift passage of Committee Report number 213 to grant 2,000 pesos across-the-board increase in the monthly pension under the Social Security system. Maraming salamat po. And I would like to manifest that I am joined by Senator T.G. Gingona in sponsoring this measure.
Thank you, Senator Villar. The Majority Leader is recognized.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 5842 under Committee Report number 213.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2270 under Committee Report number 41. This is the bill on fundamental equality of men and women under the laws on marriage, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 2270 is in order.
The parliamentary status of the measure is that we closed the period of committee amendments last June 10, 2014. I thus move that we open the period of individual amendments.
The period for individual amendments is in order. We recognize the sponsor of the measure, Senator Pia Cayetano.
Mr. President, there are no individual amendments.
So in that case, Mr. President, I move that we close the period of for individual amendments, Mr. President.
There is a motion that the period for individual amendments on Senate Bill 2270 under Committee Report number 41 be terminated. Is there any objection? Hearing none, approved.
I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2270 under Committee Report number 41.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill number 2270 under Committee Report number 41 is hereby approved on second reading.
And finally, I move that we suspend consideration of the measure, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
May we ask for a minute suspension?
1 minute suspension.
How long is one?
ka na nga mag-majority leader.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 886 under Committee Report number 85. This is the bill on the role of the AFP during elections, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Resumption of the consideration of Senate Bill 886 under Committee Report 85 is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that the sponsor already delivered his sponsorship speech last 1st of June 2015, and thus I move that we open the period of interpellations.
The period of interpellation on Senate Bill 886 under Committee Report 85 is in order.
I move that we recognize Senator Pimentel as the sponsor, and Senator Soto will interpolate on the measure, Mr. President.
Senator Soto is recognized to interpolate the period of interpellation, and the principal sponsor, Senator Pimentel, is likewise recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished gentleman from Mindanao, who almost became my chief of staff in 1992, answer a few questions, Mr. President?
With pleasure, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I noticed that in your Section 2, and this is during elections, you are giving the COMELEC the sole authority to determine if there are no available PNP units, or if there is need to augment the PNP units in a certain area. Why is this, Mr. President? Why is the COMELEC given the sole authority to determine? And then would it be be more prudent if we include a PNP in the determination of whether they have sufficient personnel for the area to be securing elections in certain areas, Mr. President?
Mr. President, during the election period, the COMELEC calls the shots, actually, because of its constitutional mandate to enforce and administer all laws and regulations relative to the conduct of an election, plebiscite, initiative, referendum, and recall. Found in the Constitution is the provision giving the COMELEC all the necessary and incidental powers for it to achieve the objective of holding free, orderly, honest, and peaceful and credible elections. And even the Administrative Code of 1987 gives the COMELEC powers consistent with this constitutional grant or the constitutional mandate that it is the COMELEC which should be in charge of the enforcement of all election laws and of making sure that our elections are free, orderly, honest, peaceful, and credible. So that is the reason why the focus is on the COMELEC. But in reality, the COMELEC actually consults with the PNP, because what the COMELEC does is for an upcoming election, it will now issue a resolution creating a task force or whatever, a body with whatever name, with the COMELEC commissioner as the head, and then it will now invite members of the PNP and the AFP to join the task force so that they can now anticipate the manpower needs in the various parts of the country, Mr. President. So, in reality, there is really consultation as well as involvement of the PNP in the decision-making process, Mr. President. But it is the COMELEC which will have to initiate everything. And it's the COMELEC which designs the membership of the task force that it is to create.
All right. Let me focus on your last statement, the last sentence of your statement, Mr. President. So, what if the PNP determines or feels that a certain area should be augmented? What happens? They have to inform the COMELEC.
Yes, they inform the COMELEC.
All right, and they give the information, and COMELEC decides.
Yes.
I see. All
And
right.
of course, I'm sure that the COMELEC will design it in such a way that it will not be a cumbersome process. I mean, diba, it will not always be clearance from the Commission and Bank. So the resolution for a particular election can already take care of the details on how the decision to augment will be carried out, who makes it, and how it will be carried out.
All right. The reason I'm asking about that, particularly that last sentence, I hope you will understand where I'm coming from. What if the PNP decides that they need to augment a certain area, pero alam naman natin na medyo gusto lang brasuhin yung area? Di ba? It happens. It happens in your region, Mr. President. They cannot do so.
It has to be the decision of the COMELEC.
So they are not allowed.
They are not allowed.
Let's say in Zamboanga del Norte, if suddenly the PNP feels that Dapitan should be augmented, they cannot. They
Yes,
are
sir.
not allowed to do so.
Yes, Mr. President. Pursuant to the general principle that during the election period, it is the COMELEC which calls the shots.
Sabi ni Senator Angara, alam daw niya yan. Yeah, I'm sure he's familiar. So, what happens if they do so?
That could be a possible election offense, Mr. President. It could be a violation of COMELEC resolution, or it could be a possible election offense.
No, don't you want to remove the word possible?
Yes, depends.
It is an election offense.
But it really depends on the facts, no? But you know, they can face a possible charge of election offense. Let me read section to section 261I of the Omnibus Election Code. This penalizes the intervention of public officers and employees, including the AFP and the PNP, if they directly or indirectly intervene in any election campaign or engages in any partisan political activity, except to vote or to preserve public order.
So it is clear, it is an election offense.
Itong mga this unauthorized movement of people meant to put pressure on the voters or some candidates can be interpreted to fall under this 261 paragraph I, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. I'm clarified, and hopefully this will add to the interpretation of this measure when the time comes. Now, may we know the time frame, Mr. President, particularly when and how long the determination of the sufficiency of the PNP personnel in a certain area, how long would it take in cases of emergencies, like say during election day? Is the process prompt? Would it be prompt enough to address a certain situation?
What is going to happen, Mr. President, is that the COMELEC will form a special task force composed of a COMELEC commissioner in charge, and then members of regional election office directors, and then PNP, high-ranking PNP and AFP officials. And this will be some sort of a quick reaction team to now address
Soon as the information is there,
exigencies on the ground. Yes, sir.
They may conduct that particular process right away.
Yes, sir.
Right.
At the soonest possible time. Yes, sir.
Is there a need for a resolution for the majority of the commissioners to do that, or just the commissioner assigned in that particular area can do so? In cases of emergencies.
Yes, at the very least, it should have the imprimatur. The decision must have the imprimatur, or must come from that special task force. So it's not that formal that it's going to have to be a commission and bank.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. In the first paragraph of Section 2, Mr. President, there is this phrase, during elections. It's the third line in the first paragraph, no? Is it the same as, when you say during elections, is it the same as election day? Your proposed bill provides that the term elections shall include all national, regional, local elections, as well as referenda, plebiscites, recall, and initiatives. However, I just want to make clear as to what particular time or period of the elections will the AFP be deputized. Election period, if I recall it right, no, my note says that the Batas Pambansa bilang 881 or the Omnibus Election Code of the Philippines states that the election period shall commence 90 days before the day of the election and shall end 30 days thereafter. So, your phrase during elections does not only mean election day.
That's correct, Mr.
That's
President.
clear.
Yes. And
All
thank
right.
you for pointing that out. At this point, I'm convinced that there is a need to clarify.
Clarify, yes,
Thank you for pointing that out, sir. And
Yes, please.
when we reach the period for amendments, we will do so.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. President. And hopefully the committee can do it.
Because, Mr. President, I fully agree that it is not only election day. Yes, sir.
It might be misinterpreted.
Yes,
as
that's
that.
correct.
All right. Thank you. Now, one final point, Mr. President. What is our assurance that the COMELEC, the PNP, the AFP would strictly comply with the provisions provided in this bill? Are there any sanctions for non-compliance?
Yes, sir. There will be sanctions. Non-compliance are possible election offenses. Precisely because non-compliance would be actually be a violation of this law. So, if it's not clear here that these are election offenses, then that would be another possible clarificatory amendment. to the bill.
Ano mga penalties natin, Mr. President, if they violate this law?
Criminal, the 261 which I mentioned, Section 261I, that could be the possible criminal offense. We can further improve this bill because of what Senator Soto has pointed out by making violation of this particular law itself a separate election offense. And then definitely there will be administrative liability on those who are not following orders.
Yes, but I'm glad you mentioned, and hopefully we can focus on making it an election offense, no?
Okay.
All right. Thank
By
you very much.
itself, sir. By itself, no? Is the
Thank you.
suggestion that we make
Yes.
it by violation of this particular bill, if it becomes law by itself, an election offense.
All right. Can I sit down with probably your staff and formulate the proposed amendments, if you don't mind, Mr. President?
You can sit down, sir, with your ex-future chief of staff.
Ex-future. Yes, the son of my... I will. The son of one of my idols, Mr. President. Just for the record, in 1992, when I won in the Senate, the first person I called was Senator Nene Pimentel. And I asked him if his son, who's just passed the bar, top-notcher, can be my chief of staff. And he said that, unfortunately, he wanted to. I even went to his house in Marikina, but he said that he wanted to, but he cannot because he already accepted a job, I think, in a law firm. So, just for the record, Mr. President.
So I will sit with you, sir, to
right.
further improve the bill authored by Senator Jingoy Estrada.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Just a few clarificatory questions from the chair and to the sponsor, just to spread it into the record.
Yes, sir.
The Constitution allows the COMELEC to deputize the AFP.
Yes, sir.
Is that a correct?
That's correct, Mr. President.
But the Constitution likewise insulates the AFP from partisan political activity.
That is correct, Mr. President.
Now, the election code defines what partisan political activity means, and this is basically any act designed to promote the election or defeat of a particular candidate. That is what is a partisan political activity. And the Constitution seeks to insulate the AFP from partisan political activity. My reading of the proposed measure is that the acts which limits the power to deputize are related to activities which are not necessarily partisan political activity in nature.
The approach of the bill, actually, as it is written, is that we are telling the AFP what it can do during elections. So that's the approach, sir, and we're limiting it to providing security. The insight I get from the bill is that AFP should maintain a no-touch policy over ballots, ballot boxes, election paraphernalia.
We fully understand, and I have no objection to the bill. What the chair is just clarifying is that we are limiting we are prohibiting specific acts which are not necessarily partisan political activities by definition of the election code. I'm not saying that
Yes,
that
sir.
is
Yes, sir.
erroneous. I am just spreading into the record that what the Constitution insulates the AFP from is from partisan political activities, and the bill would prohibit certain activities to be undertaken by the AFP, not necessarily because it is partisan, it's in the nature of a partisan political activity.
That's correct, Mr. President, and I'll give an example. They can, if this bill becomes law, no member of the AFP can be deputized or tapped to act as a BEI, as a member of the Board of Election Inspectors.
Okay.
Because in elections past, this has happened. Especially in the manual, I don't know in the automated if this has happened. So, this is one specific act, although not technically a partisan political activity because you're actually the referee, which if this bill becomes law, they can no longer perform.
And for the record, can the sponsors state why, or what is the policy reason behind this?
Because
For example, that the AFP cannot act as a member of the Board of Inspectors.
Because of the impression, Mr. President, that that they are siding with some candidate. So the act itself is not a partisan political activity under the law, but from the point of view of the voters and the constituents, they could be accused of favoring a certain candidate.
Can the police act as a member of the Board of Election Inspectors?
The bill does not prohibit the police from being tapped, Mr. President.
It only prohibits the AFP.
Mr.
It only prohibits the deputization of the AFP to act as members of the BEI.
Yes, sir.
Well, as I said, it's a matter of policy. We just want to spread this into the record.
Yes, sir.
That this is not necessarily a partisan political activity, but it is a desired limitation on the deputization of the AFP by the cabinet. That is all, Mr.
Thank you,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 886 under Committee Report number 85.
Any objection? Are there other members of the Senate of the chamber who wish to avail of the period of interpellation? If Senator Soto says that he has no objection to the closure of the period of
Yes,
interpellation.
Mr. President, I withdraw my motion. I instead move that we close the period of interpellations.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period of interpellation is terminated.
Now, Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 886 under Committee Report number 85.
Any objection? Hearing none, so suspended.
You have anything?
Just a manifestation, Mr. President, from Senator Recto that he will be delivering a co-sponsorship speech on House Bill number 5842 under Committee Report number 213, that is the SSS bill, by Tuesday of next week, Mr.
All
President.
right, noted.
Some administrative matters, Mr. President. I move to designate Senator Sani Angara, Pia Cayetano, and Vicente Soto as members of the Senate panel in the Bicameral Conference Committee on the conflicting provisions of Senate Bill number 2898, an act entitled An Act Expanding the Coverage of Incentives Granted to National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 9064, also known as National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001 and appropriating funds therefore, and House Bill number 5912 entitled An Act expanding the coverage of incentives granted to national athletes and coaches and appropriating funds therefore, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 9064, also known as the National Athletes, Coaches, and Trainers Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001, or Sports Benefits and Incentives Act of 2001. So, election of Senators Sani Angara, Pia Cayetano, and Vicente Soto as members of the Senate panel in the BICAM, Mr. President.
So constituted.
Okay, so Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, September 1, 2015.
Yes. The session is adjourned until 3 p.m. of Tuesday, September 1, 2015. The sponsor of the Bangsamoro Basic Law is not available today, so we could not take up the bill at today's plenary. Session is adjourned until September 1, 3 p.m. in the afternoon.